Are all abusers narcissists? And do all narcissists abuse people? In today's video, I want to explore these questions and also explain the connection between abuse and narcissism. Welcome to Looking Behind the Mirror, where we explore narcissism and take our lives back as we make sense out of nonsense. As a quick disclaimer, everything I say is based on my opinions and my personal experiences. I'm not a professional, and if you're really struggling, I encourage you to seek professional help. I am providing links below for you. My last video, What Exactly is Abuse, got some comments about the connection between narcissism and abuse, so I thought I'd make a video about that topic. There are a lot of reasons that the line between abuse and narcissism is a very fine line, and why the two are so intermingled and are often so confused for each other. Abuse, by its very nature, is narcissistic, and there are a lot of characteristics of narcissism that cause abuse. In my last video, I think I said something to the effect of anybody that makes a habit out of abusing people is probably a narcissist, but I've thought more about that, and I think maybe that's too simple of a statement to make. Maybe it's a little more complicated than that, because I started to think of more exceptions to that rule than I had previously considered. And I think that to abuse someone, while you are abusing that person, you are looking through a narcissistic lens. You are using narcissistic reasoning, but that doesn't necessarily mean that you're a pathological narcissist. A pathological narcissist is somebody that only has that lens to view the world through. A pathological narcissist can't see the world in any other way but the way that somebody that is being abusive is seeing the world, maybe just in those moments that they are being abusive. Abuse and narcissism are two different things. And I made another video a while back that got a lot more criticism than any of my other videos have ever gotten. And I expected that when I made the video, but I thought it was an important point that I wanted to make. And the video was Narcissism is Not a Crime. And this was the subject that I was kind of delving into, the idea I was delving into, that narcissism and abuse are not the same thing. But people really blend these two ideas together because narcissists so often become abusive, almost always become abusive in some way. But narcissism by itself isn't a crime. Narcissism by itself is a way of viewing the world that nobody really ever asked for. It's the defense mechanisms, it's the coping mechanisms, and it's the lack of development that a narcissist has. And it just is what it is. There's really not much that a pathological narcissist can do to stop being narcissistic. But if they try, there are things they can do to stop abusing people. And like I said in my Narcissism is Not a Crime video, I think that when we blend these two together and we vilify narcissists for being narcissists instead of holding them accountable for their abusive actions, we at the same time suggest that a narcissist can't stop abusing people, has no free will or agency. When we vilify somebody for being a narcissist, we've really given that person a free pass to do whatever they want. Because if being a narcissist is the crime, they can't stop being a narcissist. That's impossible. And that's why I think it can be really important to understand the difference and to separate narcissism from abuse. Now, why is there such a close connection? Why do most narcissists end up abusing people? Well, narcissists don't have any empathy, or have very, very little empathy for the people that they mistreat, because they're so self-focused and so self-centered. And I have whole videos on why narcissists don't have much empathy. They're just way too wrapped up in what they're thinking about and how they feel and what's going on with them. So a lack of empathy certainly allows you to mistreat people without having it bother you, or without being able to even understand how much you're hurting somebody else when you really just don't care enough to even think about it. And narcissists are very self-centered. That's what narcissism really is all about. They're focused on themselves. They're focused on their needs. They're focused on what benefits them. They don't care how it affects anybody else. They don't care how it harms anybody else. And narcissists are also extremely entitled. They feel entitled to do whatever it is that they want or need in order to gain whatever they want or need. So the ends always justify the means in a narcissist's mind, and the means are anything, any awful thing in the world that they're capable of, and the ends are anything they want. On top of all this, narcissists have a lot of distorted views of reality. They project a lot. So narcissists will imagine that you're the one that's being nasty, or you're the one that's angry at them all the time, or you're the one that doesn't listen or doesn't consider them or doesn't try or doesn't care. So they really believe these things. They're projecting all these ugly things that they're dealing with onto you. And so they really believe that you're some kind of awful, horrible person with all these emotional problems, and that makes them feel justified in defending themselves. So there's that. And then, of course, there's just the deep pathological shame they deal with that causes all the unregulated, unstable emotions that they don't know what to do with. So that can cause abuse just by itself. That can cause them to use other people as punching bags just to regulate their own emotions and make themselves feel better. So when you put all of these characteristics of narcissism together, it's no wonder that narcissists end up abusing people so often. And it's no wonder that narcissism and abuse really just get blended together. In order to try to separate these two ideas a little bit more, I want to introduce an analogy, and I'm going to talk about people that have anger issues. And I actually want to point out two things with this analogy, but the first thing I want to present is the idea that somebody that has anger issues is probably naturally going to end up in a lot of fights. They're going to end up fighting a lot, right? I think this is a good analogy to somebody that is narcissistic or that is a narcissist is going to end up abusing people. So we go back to the analogy of somebody with anger issues is going to end up fighting. We can see that fighting is just a natural consequence of having anger issues. But I think it's a little easier with something that most of us have a little better understanding of to see that there is a difference between the two. You can have serious anger issues, and you can also learn how to control that and deal with that in a way that you can stop getting into so many fights. The fighting and the anger issues are two separate problems, and somebody with anger issues can still have anger issues, and at the same time they can minimize the fights that they get into, or maybe even eliminate them altogether if they do enough work on this. And there's a couple more things I want to point out about this. First of all, I think that somebody with anger issues is a really good example of somebody that is not necessarily a narcissist, but somebody that could become abusive. So somebody that has anger issues might lose control. They might not have the best coping tools. They might not really know what to do with their emotions, and they might end up being abusive. But I think if this person is not a narcissist, they're probably going to have remorse about that later, maybe even a lot of shame for the way that they've treated people. And, you know, abuse is still abuse, but somebody that just has anger issues but isn't a narcissist is hopefully going to recognize their issues and do something about it and stop being abusive. A narcissist, on the other hand, is very unlikely to change because narcissists just really don't care. They don't feel remorse. They don't feel bad for the people they've yelled at. And because of the things I just pointed out, they really believe that they have a good reason to mistreat and abuse people. They are projecting all their crap onto other people, and they really think that you're the bad guy. How did you expect them to act? I think maybe another example of somebody that can be abusive without being a narcissist would just be somebody that's incredibly immature, or somebody that's really dealing with a lot of overwhelming emotions, just doesn't know what to do with them. I mean, these two things could probably still apply to somebody with anger issues, but I just think in general, learning to control your own emotions without hurting others is probably usually a matter of maturity. Abuse by itself is narcissistic. It is a narcissistic thing to do, to abuse somebody else, but I know that there are people that I would maybe say are very narcissistic, but I would hesitate to call a pathological narcissist. And I know some of these people that I would say have abused others, but you know, abuse doesn't always look like yelling, screaming, throwing things, insulting people, and just, I think when we hear the word abuse, we think of these horrific images, which definitely happen, but abuse can also just be causing people to feel badly about themselves, blame themselves for things that aren't their fault, feel obligated to things that they shouldn't feel obligated for. I definitely think people are capable of abusing others with a smile, or maybe abusing others with their own tears. You know, somebody that cries and moans and acts so deeply hurt in order to manipulate somebody else is really being just as abusive as somebody that yells and screams and demands what they want through intimidation. I don't think that this is really that important of a topic for us to focus on, or to really try to make really clear lines between narcissism and abuse. I think that sometimes we can get too caught up in identifying something as either narcissistic or not narcissistic, when really we really should be more worried about whether something is abusive or not abusive, especially things that are happening to us. I think that's what it really comes down to, because if someone is abusing you, it doesn't really matter why. I think that we really get caught up in trying to understand why. And narcissism can often be the why. Narcissism can often be the explanation for the abuse. But it really doesn't matter at the end of the day. If somebody is abusing you, that is not okay, and it's never okay. And it doesn't matter why. It doesn't matter what somebody else is going through or what somebody else's problems are. It's not your job to sacrifice yourself, to sacrifice your well-being, to sacrifice your mental and physical health for somebody that can't get through life without hurting other people. That is just, it's not an act of love, I don't think, to allow yourself to be sacrificed in order to help somebody else cope with their emotional problems in an unhealthy way. Abuse may or may not be narcissistic, but abuse is abuse, period. And if abuse is happening to you, you have every right to put up boundaries and to separate yourself from that situation in any way that you're capable of doing. And if you realize later that this person that abused you maybe isn't actually a pathological narcissist, it really shouldn't make any difference. It really shouldn't matter at all, because, oh, well, actually they just had anger issues, or actually they were just really immature and they were overwhelmed with emotion. That doesn't make abuse okay. That doesn't suddenly give them a pass. Like, if anything, it should make it even worse, because a pathological narcissist will have an even harder time trying to deal with their emotions without abusing people than somebody that isn't a pathological narcissist. So really, at the end of the day, I don't think that this is something that we should really get caught up on, especially if we're using it to make our own decisions, to make big life decisions. I think this topic is a good topic to consider and maybe have these philosophical like discussions about. But when it comes to your life and your safety and your future, it just really doesn't matter. Abuse is abuse, and abuse is not okay, no matter what is causing it. I hope this helps. If you like this video, give it a thumbs up and comment below any ideas you have for me for future videos. And don't forget to subscribe to my channel if you like this video and would like to see more like it in the future. Until next time, thanks. Bye.